All right, good morning. It's going to be our second video on productivity and the production possibility curve. I did another video just a second ago, about 9 minutes. This week we're going to take the figures from the last video and apply them and try to chart them on a graph, right? You've done this in some of your science classes, and I want to kind of review that process in this class so you'll get comfortable with the graphs that we're using. We'll use a lot of graphs in economics, especially when we get into supply and demand, things like that. So remember, we had two products in our previous video where a country had to decide how they're going to use their scarce resources, right? Are we going to make guns or butter? Are we going to make consumer goods or industrial goods, right? And have to make choices, and you can do a mix of them, but if you do more of one, you got to do less of the other, and if you do more of the other, you got to do less of that, right? So there's a trade-off, right, because of limited productive resources, right? Fact of life and economics, fundamental truth of economics is that things are scarce, so you have to make choices, right? In this example we set up, we said this country could either make shoes or they could make apples, right? Farm products or consumer products like that, right? So, and we had a certain values as they make more of this one, the other one goes down, and they make more of this one, apples goes down, right? So I want to graph this out, and let's look at the graph. A graph, remember, has an x-axis and a y-axis. It doesn't really matter about that. The main thing is you give them certain values. All right, so let's say over here we've got apples on one side, and we've got shoes over here. Can you see that? Shoes and apples. So some relationship between shoes. If we make more apples, we make less shoes. If we make more shoes, we make less apples. So let's plot these numbers. Now when you make a graph, you've got to give it some scale, and that's totally however you can do it. It doesn't really matter. Just try to be consistent, right? So units looks like we're going about 120 on either side, 100 and 120. So we got to make, why don't we make units of 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, right? Let's see, what are we doing? That'll be fine. We can do it 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. It's really all we need here. It's 120. Okay, for apples. And then for shoes, about the same scale. Let's do it here. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, right? Just this can be fairly rough. Doesn't have to be exact. So everyone's got to see what we did here. We've made a graph. It's going to be a graph. Think about these lines extended out like on graph paper, right? And these are the vertical lines and horizontal lines, and where they intersect is a point that has a certain value of apples and a certain value of shoes, right? So it's a grid like that. And let's plot these in a different color so you can be kind of clear on what they are. They will plot them in green, so right? So let's just, this is the schedule over here, and we're going to plot it on the graph over here. This is production schedule, and this will be a production graph, right? And so let's just plot out these points. 100 apples, that means 0 shoes. Remember, this point here is 0. They call that the origin, right? 0. So you got to start, and each one goes increasing up from here, from the center, and this goes up from here, right? So you've got these increasing amounts as you go further away from the intersection of those two lines. We said if we make 100 apples, we don't make any shoes, right? 0 shoes. That's at that point right there. Excuse me, it'd be right here, right? There's 100 apples and 0 shoes. That's the order. That'd be 0, 0. I was thinking, how can I graph that? All right, so let's say you decide to make 90 apples. So you can start making about 20 shoes, right? So shoes starts to go out to 20 instead of 0, right? But you're making less apples. So instead you want to make 50 pairs of shoes. So somewhere around here, you're only going to make 60 apples, units. Remember, we're talking units of apples, so it could be 60, 100, 60,000 or 60 million crates of apples if it's a big country. So it's just a scale. We're just using these numbers to work with here. So you want to make more shoes? Okay, you're going to make 75,000 shoes. So that's kind of in between here, almost close to 80. But you're only going to make 30 apples, units of apples, right? So you see this little curve starting to form here. And the last one, we were out here for 120 and all shoes, right? All shoes, you're doing 120 units of shoes. You're doing 0 units of apples, right? Apples is 0. So let's collect the dots, right? Kind of loops down there. So this curve, it's kind of roughly drawn. It shows what's possible using all of the resources to make these two products, right? This is the maximum you can make using all the resources, right? You can't do anything out here, right? Some point out there is impossible, right? You don't have the resources, right? Just this is your limit. This is a schedule that's been worked out by economists and people who know and have studied the resources of a country and what we can do, right? Or it could be from past experience even, right? So this is what we can do, and this is what we've been doing. Now, this is just a moment in time, right? Maybe they get some more resources and they become more productive, and they could make more altogether of everything, just depending how they want to mix it up, right? So this curve right here is what we call a production possibility curve, right? And that's it right here. This curve right there is production possibility curve, and it shows what's the maximum you can do with the resources available, right? And countries would like to do more. They would like to kind of push this curve out a little bit, maybe, if they could, you know. Maybe they'd find some new land or some new technology or train the workers, or, you know. So that curve can move. It could move in if there's like a war or a famine or a pandemic, you know. That production possibility curve shifts in and out depending on economic resources and the uses of them and the human capital and the technology that's available, right? But it's a moment in time. It is this line that shows the limit, right? This would be, we call this economic growth, right? If a country could shift that curve further out, they would be growing, be more productive. They found some more resources, right? Allows them to be more productive. So this is the production possibility curve. I just wanted to kind of introduce you to it, and we're going to talk a little bit more in class about what countries do to shift that curve out, to increase productivity, right? What do they invest in to do that, to make their country more productive and to grow? Growth is a sort of goal of all economic systems. They want to grow, they want to prosper, and improve their standard of living. And what do they do to get more out of the resources available, right? To make those numbers go up and be able to do more. And we're going to talk about that in class, but these two videos should give you a good foundation on this whole idea of productivity and the production possibility curve. All right? Thanks for watching.